Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, this is your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast. This is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs. Calvin and I like to take a casual approach to the hobby. So, on this podcast here, we talk about all the cool games we run and the cool games we play in, all the cool, wonderful people that we do this hobby with. Yeah, if you're new to the whole tabletop RPG genre, what are you doing? Go find yourself a table, go have some fun. And if you are a player at someone's table, hey, maybe it's your turn to jump behind the GM screen.
Indeed. So this week, we wanted to get into the new Starfinder field test that was recently put up on the Pasion blog, which I'll have a link to all that below. The first one we saw focused on the soldier, and this one is about the mystic, and it also includes some spells that'll be included in the second edition of Starfinder. So that's really exciting. Want to get into some of the features there that there's some pretty cool stuff in there that I'm really excited to talk about. But before we get to all that, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yes, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week, brought to you by Calvin. Thanks, Calvin.
Yeah. So something that occurred recently in a Baldur's Gate 3 stream, well actually it kind of happened in a couple different streams, is just the killing of a significant NPC. Most recently, I met this character by the name of, I think, Minthara, and I don't know what her deal is, I don't know anything about her, but I've seen a lot of fan art of her, and I know people like her for whatever reason. But, I showed up, things happened, and only one of us got out of there alive. And I was just thinking, of that in terms of how that would affect a tabletop RPG game. And I think it would be interesting in many cases just to, as a GM, you have your plans, your ideas, your things that you want to have happen, your ideas of where things are going to go. But sometimes stuff just happens. Sometimes your important NPC dies just because of the circumstances that occur. And also sometimes in those cases, it's just more interesting to roll with the sort of consequences of those things. Try to figure out the story that's being created between you and your players. Obviously, there's going to be exceptions for times where, where you definitely want to reboot or something or roll back or you have a discussion with your party about it. But I would just say to definitely spend some time thinking about, what can happen now if I move forward from here? What can happen now that all these things have been changed and are going in new and different directions? Think more about what's been gained rather than the potential deep set plans you may have lost.
Yeah. I think it's one of the best parts about tabletop RPGs is that, you're collectively telling this story with, some of your close friends, right? Even you as a GM, even though, your kind of role is to facilitate the narrative, you're also a player. So it's also fun, to have the unknown, right? Like you thought something was going to go some way and then it didn't. So, you get to live the exciting life of, trying to figure out what that means for your narrative. And I think that's honestly like most of my games are like that too, where it's just kind of like something crazy happened, so I guess this is where it's gonna go.
Yeah, that's one of the best parts of being a player is just the unknown, and you have so little of that as a GM that sometimes you might want to embrace it.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, there you go, folks. Embrace the deaths of major NPC characters, and your games will be richer for it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I chose Halsin over Minthara, and I'm not sorry. Halsin seems like a pretty cool guy.
I hope that's not a spicy opinion. I have no clue. I have no context of what you're talking about. I'm sure our audience does. Yeah. So, yeah.
I have no idea. I just know people like Minthara, but people also like Halsin, so I don't know which is the spicy take.
All right, cool. Yeah, awesome.
Alright, well let's get into Starfinder Field Test number 2. Again, there will be a link to the blog post below that features this particular document. So if you want to go check out some information on it, it'll be right there. And if you want to download the document, I'll also have a link to the Starfinder Field Test website. Again, they're calling this a field test more than a play test because they're getting really deep dives into the actual development of the game. There's some blog posts on just like how people reacted to the first field test, and including some play-by-plays of like some of their test games and things like that. So definitely check out the Paizo blog because it's got all sorts of information. But here we are talking about the Mystic class, and we're getting a preview of some of the spells that will be included within Starfinder 2nd Edition, which, as mentioned before, is going to be compatible with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which I'm very excited for because I sure do love that 3-action system.
Yeah, definitely one of the I guess I don't know I don't explain it, but it's just way better. It just feels good to play and use, and just really intuitive somehow.
Yeah, I think it's intuitive because, well, I mean, it's nice to play because you have more resources to work with, and it's more intuitive because you don't have to remember like what type of action each thing is. You just know how much of your turn it takes up.
Yeah.
That's at least been my thing. So Starfinder 2nd Edition, the actual playtest will be launching next year in 2024, and the game itself is launching in 2025, I believe, at Gen Con. As they've mentioned here in the doc, they mentioned the year in the document. I think they said previously it's going to be at Gen Con, or it might just be thinking of a million other things. One thing there here that I thought was an interesting note is that they specifically mentioned to, like, something that they wanted to state clearly, is that Starfinder 2nd Edition is not meant to be an expansion of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, but pretty much its own, independent game. Even though it's using the same core rules engine, and in the playtest book they will have, like, references to Pathfinder, if only to save some space, but it's meant to be its own separate game, and I kind of thought that was pretty clear from the outset, but I don't know if maybe that's just something that came up in discussions around the game, that is coming off as sort of an expansion on Pathfinder rather than something that's compatible with Pathfinder.
Well, I think it's, well, from my perception as, like, I guess Pathfinder as being the only fantasy game that we play exclusively. Pretty much, we don't play 5e, right? So it's like when Starfinder showed up, the first time, it was obviously an extension off of Pathfinder 1, and I think that they just kind of, I don't know, I think Paison's design mindset towards like the new Pathfinder 2, I think they just have a bunch of really good ideas, and it doesn't make any sense to not use those ideas in future developments, right? I mean, right. I think that there's so many other systems in Starfinder that's very distinct from Pathfinder, although it would be kind of nice to have some rules kind of overlap, because I think like both games can benefit in like different ways. So I don't know, I think that because like the core mechanics of 3 actions and specific like saves and stuff like that, like all of that stuff is paramount to both systems, and that's why it's starting to feel a little bit samey, I guess when people was thinking about it, because like you could see a world where like Starfinder is just kind of like a splat book, or like another book that you can just tack onto your Pathfinder games. But I think inherently the story, the setting, all of the items, all that stuff is very unique to Starfinder, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's also something they continue to mention, like it'll give, like, what their intent is to give the team more space to sort of create new creatures, items, and spells and things like that, rather than just updating Pathfinder content, because it will already be compatible, so they don't have to make like the Starfinder version of something, because the Pathfinder version already exists. They can make new Starfinder stuff.
Exactly, right. And that's kind of half the fun. I mean, I think one of the cool parts about Starfinder is that you're flipping through the book or a PDF or whatever, and you'll see like clearly science fiction shit, and then all of a sudden you see like a dragon flying a fighter jet, and you're like, damn. What?
Actually true, yeah.
Yeah, right. And you're like, oh, that's fucking sick. Like, I love, like, they I don't know, I just think that Starfinder is more of a blend of fantasy elements. Like it's literally just like I think if they took the fantasy world of Pathfinder and just shot it like in the future, right? But I think that's like makes sense that things could be like dragons still exist. They don't stop being dragons, but now there's just kind of like an upgraded version of it, I guess.
Yeah, now they have corporations instead of hordes.
Yeah, exactly, right? And some of them can fly giant fighter jets or something.
Yeah.
Like it's cool, which I'm excited for because like then I could take if there's a cool Pathfinder monster that I'm like fucking ghosts should still exist, right? Like this kick-ass ghost is here. I should probably be able to put it in a Starfinder game or like that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think it's fine. It's fine.
Another thing they mentioned about Starfinder in general that I wanted to bring up before we got into the Mystic class is that with regards to the design of the game, they have like this overarching like meta state of the game that they have like a focus on to help separate it from Pathfinder. Specifically, Starfinder is meant to have a stronger focus on ranged combat, which sort of makes sense for a setting where everybody's carrying around like a laser pistol or whatever. Like everybody has some sort of basic ranged weapon on them. While that might not like be the focus for every single class, there is the assumption that ranged combat will be something that everybody can possibly have access to.
Exactly, right. I think that's pretty cool ways of distincting the genres because that's kind of like what you imagine in like the outliers in a sci-fi setting are the dudes with the swords, right? While conversely in like a fantasy setting, it's the dudes that have a gun. They are like the outliers, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just thought that was an interesting thought because that's definitely like totally right. Like the guns and weaponry are definitely more of a focus in Starfinder. At least the long range weaponry.
Yeah.
But let's get into some Mystic stuff. So I think we talked about this a bit, and it is mentioned here that they want to, differentiate their classes from just being futuristic versions of classes that already exist. Right. And that's why the Mystic underwent some of the changes that it did coming into Starfinder 2nd Edition. Specifically, two of the things they added are something called a Mystic Bond and a Vitality Network. Which we'll get into as we describe the class. So they wanted the Mystic to basically be a class that is able to bond with allies and also form connections with their allies, with people around them, as well as with the setting itself. So the way they've represented this mechanically is that the Mystic can select up to 10 allies to basically be part of their Mystic Bond. This is the power of friendship, basically. You can choose up to 10 people and enter into an impenetrable bond with them. And this bond will last until either one person breaks it or... I actually don't know if the bond ends if a character dies. I would assume so. But if that was specifically mentioned, I might have missed it. I just also think it would be interesting if it didn't. The other thing is their Vitality Network, which is a pool of points that can be spent for healing or other effects. And we'll get into some of those. I think the Mystic is going to be a really good healer, obviously. And I think it would be interesting to see it played alongside something like a more traditional cleric. As of now, it focuses on either divine or primal magic. It's a spontaneous caster, so you gotta learn spells, but then you can cast them with any spell slot that you have, that sort of thing. But again, they want a strong focus on bonding with allies and connecting with people, so you can choose up to 10 people to be part of this network, and we'll get into that. So other class stuff, as far as these are going to be things that people will be familiar with if you've played Pathfinder 2nd Edition. You've got your key attribute being Wisdom. Your hit points per level are going to be 8 plus your Constitution modifier. As far as saving throws go, you're going to be an expert in Will, which is probably pretty obvious because you're a magic person with a high Wisdom score. So all the other stuff is just how the game works. Your ancestry, your background, all that stuff that you put into your character. As far as class features go, with the Mystic, we start off with the Connection. And this is something that was brought over from Starfinder 1st Edition. This is just basically what flavor of magic you have. So the Connection in 1st Edition it gives you basically like you get a unique spell with it, you get unique effects with it, and as you level up, you can get more things with just how you connect to your own magic. The second edition field tests, it's very much the same. You get different types of spells, like essentially the spell tradition. So like your divine, your primal, that's determined by your connection. Similar to how like other classes may choose a deity, and in fact with this one you can potentially have a deity as well. And yeah, it changes the spells some skills you get, and in addition you get something called a harmony benefit, which will sort of expand the options you have with the points in your vitality network. Which the vitality network additionally is, I think, the most interesting thing in this class so far.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that in a sec. Like I mentioned before, you have a mystic bond, which you can form between yourself and others, up to 10 other willing creatures. You have to do some sort of 10-minute activity, which is related to your mystic connection. But after you do that, you are able to bond with these people. And again, it's very much mechanically the power of friendship, and there's a lot of different ways you can use it and apply it. And also, your own character is assumed to be part of your bond. It doesn't say specifically, but I would assume that you yourself don't count towards the 10 other creatures.
That makes sense. Well, I say that, but I think that's the way I would interpret it. Like, yeah, you could have one more person. That's fine.
Yeah.
10 feels like a lot.
It does.
I guess, yeah, that's like the average party size would probably be like 4, you'd say 4 or 5, and then I guess if those companions, they also have companions along the way.
Oh, maybe
animal companions and stuff like that. So like we're looking at like 8 to 10 possible. So that makes sense, just in case like they have like a dog friend or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah, I was thinking it's weird that it's even more than like 5 or 6, but I wasn't thinking about companions as well.
Maybe. I mean, maybe it could be like an important NPC that they're like, I just want to be connected.
True. I mean, yeah, that's definitely like that would fit because they want the character to be able to connect with the setting as well. But let's get into the vitality network. Essentially, your soul has a network of vital energy that connects you and the people in your bond. It's a value with a certain number of points. You start off basically it's 6 plus 4 points per level you have, and in general it is applied as hit points. So essentially, you start off with a pool of 10 hit points. This will increase per level, as well as as you level up, this pool will get larger, and you can spend these points to help heal allies. Essentially, at the start of each turn, you regain 4 points up to your maximum, and you can regain more points as you level up in your connection skill. Essentially, once you go from master to legendary, you start getting more points as you start a turn. But yeah, in simplest terms, you have a pool of 6 plus 4 hit points per level that you have, and you can spend those to heal allies with a single action. With that action, called Transfer Vitality, you can transfer any number of hit points from your Vitality network into yourself or a bonded creature that you can see. So you have a pretty powerful heal right out of the get-go. You can heal 10 hit points as a single action, basically at first level. However, you have to consider that pool then has to recharge, because if you spend those points right away, you start getting like 4 back per turn. Who knows what's going to happen over the next few turns? So you basically have to choose between if someone needs it, giving them that big heal burst near the start of combat, versus waiting later in combat where people might be going down, and even 1 point of healing can keep someone from, having to worry about making recovery checks.
Now, healing works the same way as, I forget because stamina is different from actual health points, right? Or is that...
As far as I know, they don't have like the stamina points and stuff as like, because like previous, like in Starfinder First Edition, they had stamina points and then you go into your hit points and things. As far as I can tell, they don't have that as like they just use the same sort of hit point system as Pathfinder. So stamina points are like an optional thing you can add because I think they're in the Game Master's Guide. But yeah, it's just hit points in the same way that Pathfinder works.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, right. I forgot we did that playtest where we're like, oh yeah, this is just the same. Yeah,
True.
I was there. A little while I was like, oh, I forgot. Because we didn't do any healing. We just shot some wolves. Some space.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting. You know, you get to have the ability to just drop 10 hit points on someone right away. I think that's pretty cool. But I more so like that you have to choose between what's useful right away versus what you might need later and how you want to spend that resource. Especially considering there are other feats and stuff that can spend more of these points, as we'll see as we go into this class. And that is the thing that I think makes this class stand out a whole lot more, is that you have this mechanic, you have this pool, and you have to decide how to properly spend it to make sure it's the most effective. Yeah, so as mentioned, with Mystic Spellcasting, it's a spontaneous caster, so you have spells that you know, you have a list of spells you know, and you have a number of spell slots that you can use to cast any spell that you already know. Again, your connection is going to give you different kinds of spells that you know. As well, when you're dealing with heightening spells, you have to learn the spell at a higher spell slot if you want to cast it at a higher spell slot. Typical spontaneous caster mumbo jumbo. Cantrips are auto heightened, that sort of thing. There is a signature spell feat that you get, or a class feature that you get at 3rd level, which basically means that any spell, like you can choose a certain spell, and you can basically cast it at any level without having to take up any space in your known spells for the spell at that level. Which I'm pretty sure other classes have. Just off the top, I think they do. I just don't like specifically remember off the top of my head. I don't remember every feat every class has.
That's pretty cool, actually. That means that, like, you know, you could have like because that's always kind of the problem, right? I find with spell casting, like heightening spells, because like some spells just kind of do the same thing, right? Like once you get access to stuff like, I mean, in terms of Pathfinder, like Fireball, for instance, is a very good spell that just does fire damage in an area. But then it's like, why would you want to do that versus like, why would you want to not cast Fireball versus like heightening Burning Hands or something, right?
Right.
Like like I don't know what the math works on it. I'm pretty sure it's comparable, but like Burning Hands at higher levels just does more damage in a smaller area, where Fireball will just, it doesn't make, it's more, there's no incentive to kind of like heighten stuff sometimes. Like it's just like there's just going to be another spell that is basically the same thing, just in a different form, that rolls the appropriate amount of dice anyway. So why bother, you know, heightening that spell?
Sure, I can see that.
Like unless there's learning spell related things that I have not been following, which could be the situation. But I've generally, when I play a spellcaster and when I allow spellcasters in my games, it's like I never check anyone's math. I mean, if you tell me you got a new spell, I'm like, sick, man. I hope it works out. Like,
yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. But I mean, definitely something like heal is very useful when you heighten it. So yeah, there's probably, like, with all the spells in the game, there's probably some damaging spells that are pretty comparable to something that, you know, between something that is that level and something heightened to that level.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's going to depend on the kind of dice, or like what you might add to the roll and stuff like that. Like, is something rolling 2d8 versus 2d6 plus a number or something like that? I think that's just going to depend on what sort of dice math ends up happening between those spells.
But I like it. It's cool. It's flavorful. It's like you're just so good at this one thing that you're like, I'll you know, when you bust it out, the special move, then it's like, yeah, it's my signature spell. It's the one I the one I've mastered. It feels good. I think that's kind of the thing that's lacking in spellcasters, is like the idea of like the signature spell, where it's like, you know, how like martial classes can be like, I am, this is my signature weapon. I'm really good at using a sword or a pistol or whatever, right? I feel like magic should be kind of like that, where it's like, you specialized, or you've cast a spell so many times that you're so good at it.
Yeah, true. Although, because that would only apply to spontaneous casters, and there's not that many. I think most of them are just like, yeah, do whatever spell you want. Well, most of them are prepared casters, which isn't do whatever spell you want. It's, all the spells, and you have to prepare which ones you want to use, versus, you can choose whatever spell you want to use at whatever slot. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's just because there's not so many of those kinds of casters, though. Because not enough people play Bard.
Yeah, that is true. I only know one Bard player.
True. Yeah, so additional class features include Mental Bond. So if you are bonded with a creature in your Mystic Connection, you can communicate telepathically, as long as you are on the same planet and both alive.
I love the stipulation.
It's pretty broad, actually.
Just anywhere on the planet and they're alive. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, this is, if you brought a Mystic into a Pathfinder game, I feel like that sort of thing maybe you need to balance a bit. This is kind of because this is made for, a setting where you can be on different planets at any given time.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you basically just have a cell phone plan.
That's basically it.
Oh, let me ring up so and so. Yeah, whatever. Who cares? That would, actually brilliant idea. Probably okay. You guys can steal this. I think maybe we should have a section in the podcast where I come up with crackpot ideas and you guys can take it. In a fantasy setting, I think that one of the coolest, the one thing that I think people always try and put in is a way of being able to communicate like we do in the modern times, because it's so ubiquitous to us now that it makes total sense that we want to try and replicate that in a different time period, essentially, right? I mean, all this crazy magic stuff is happening anyway. Why is it that communication is so hard, right? Long distance communication. I feel like there should be there should be if a mystic exists in your world, they should be highly sought after for their ability to just communicate anywhere in the world. That's a big deal. And in actuality, communication in the low tech world, I guess, back in our past is was light on top of a mountain, or a dude on a horse. So if most of everyone is running on that, imagine the idea of in a noble court or something, the king has a mystic, and actually the mystic's primary job is to relay information to whoever, to us, I think it's one-to-one, just relay information, right? And that could be such a serious thing that you're being sought after by nobility and royalty and stuff like that. And then maybe the secondary thing is just to advise on the matters of magic shit. So yeah, do that in your setting. Your setting's cooler now. Thanks, you're welcome. You're just there you go.
I actually really like that, because it has to be someone they're still bonded with. So I like the idea that there's this very small network of 10 people, and they're just all in different corners of the planet, and they can just communicate instantaneously. That would be extremely powerful in a fantasy setting.
Yeah, exactly, right? But it has to be there's only so many mystics,
Oh yeah,
and even, and now it's if the mystics ever all decide to not work together, that's a big deal. Yeah, man, that's a whole fucking adventure on itself. What if fucking somebody's mystic gets stolen, right? They get kidnapped. Ooh. That's an adventure right there. Go save the king's mystic, because one, they probably know all the king's secrets because their whole job is to transfer that information. And two, there's only so many of them. If one of them gets killed or something, it's a big deal.
Yeah, they're out of the network.
Yeah. There you go.
Ooh, all right. Well, free adventure idea.
Free adventure idea. We should do that. Maybe we should replace the tip of the week with free ideas.
Yeah, we got to come up with a alliterative name for that, though. Win with Dice,
true.
Weekly, I don't know, something. Wacky idea of the week. I don't know.
Whoa.
Okay, so additionally, at third level, when you get the mental bond class feature, you can also do the absolute bond action, which is essentially whenever you're going to cast a spell and your ally is in that space, one or more of your bonded allies would be affected by that spell. You can choose to either only affect one bonded ally, or the spell specifically doesn't affect that bonded ally. So if you do like a big heal burst in an area, and just one of your allies is there for some reason, I don't know why you would do that. I don't know why I went for the heal specifically. But you can basically have it only affect that one ally, or if you do an area damage thing, which I think this would be more useful for, you can make sure that your ally is not affected.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's pretty cool actually. I wish that was. I actually don't know. I think there is a feat that just like allows you to selectively I was gonna say unselect people for targeting.
I think there's an alchemist thing that does that.
Yeah, there's an alchemist thing that you can just like. I think it's per like int or something. I may be remembering from Pathfinder 1 because I played an alchemist that did that, where you're able to like per like int bonus or whatever you got, you could not target somebody in an area of effect splash thing. So when your bombs go off, you could just be like, I don't want to hit my friends.
I don't remember the specifics, but I'm pretty sure there's an alchemist thing that does that. I don't know if it's the same int thing, but I'm pretty sure you can. But if you don't have that, then you can use this. Additionally, when you're bonded with someone, you can also regain some points to your vitality network if you spend some points on healing them.
Yeah, which I think is super cool because like you can cast a spell to heal, refill your thing, and then heal them again afterwards with your one action. It feels like good. It feels good. Yeah, I like that there's just, you can just do more. Doing more things is awesome. So I like that it gives you the option to, really feel like you're getting the most. Because like I find that at least when you're stressed out playing the only healer in one of our campaigns, and it's like the action economy is not kind to those two healers.
Not really.
No.
Yeah, because with this, like all you have to do is able to see them.
Yeah, right. Versus like your one action heal spell is like you have to be like right next to them and stuff, right? So it's
True.
It's tough.
It really is. Yeah, that's why I'm thinking, like, this could be, I really want to, maybe that should be the playtest. If I make a playtest for this, that it should include a cleric, just to compare the two.
Should be like, all right, heal off. Look.
Heal off?
Heal off.
Yeah, man.
Oh, you know what it should be? You should just, the playtest should just be like you have, each of you guys has the same fighter, right? And then your job is to have, like, you make the fighters fight, and then the mystic and the cleric stand back, and like you just have
support.
to see who yeah, you just support, and you just have the fighters fight, and then whoever wins, whichever fighter goes out first loses.
You know what? I like that. That was that shit. That would be actually just like a really fun, like, just not an adventure, but like a single sort of combat situation.
Yeah, just two fighters step in and only one fighter comes out, except one of them is being charged with magical powers, and the other one is, I guess they're both being charged with magical powers. Yeah, it'll be fun. I mean, I feel like it would just be a very extended, like the fight would just be drawn out way longer, but it'd be kind of funny.
Yeah, man, I'm into it. All right, so let's get into some of the class feats for the Mystic. They also have here that they specifically mention spell shape as an important turn. And this is just basically meta magic. This is just what they renamed it to. It's just that thing that sort of alters how spells work, like how you can increase the range of your spell. They just changed that term to spell shape. I think we brought this up when we were talking about the preview document for the core rulebook.
Yeah.
But let's get into these mystics. So there's some straightforward stuff. Like if you're a divine caster and you worship a deity, You can have feats that either gain you access to that deity's domain spells, or you gain access to that deity's weapon. Similarly, if you're a primal caster, you have a feat option that gives you like different sort of similar to the druid's connections. You can connect to like animals or plants and get certain spells. Although this one, which I don't think the druid has, this has the option of connecting to like viruses. So you can get like a spell called Goblin Pox, or you can get a spell called Instant Virus, or Stardust Plague. These ones are still in development, but name-wise, they sound really interesting. And yeah, we get into some of the more interesting stuff. One I thought was pretty interesting is one of the spell-shaped ones, where it's essentially like, if you're casting a spell that uses an area, a range, or a target, you can have the spell itself like start from the position of one of your bonded allies within 20 feet. So if you gotta hit someone with a spell and they're just a little bit far away, if one of your allies is just a bit closer, if they're like within 20 feet of you, you basically get an extra 20 feet distance on your spell. Which can really come in handy. I mean, there's certainly situations where, you're just, especially considering the average character speed is like 20-25, an extra 20 feet could really make a difference in casting a spell.
Well, exactly. And like it could also even be like, even think about it, right? Like you could also does it take an action?
It takes an action to do, similar to the other stuff. So yeah.
Right. But okay. Yeah, I mean it's still like, I mean all of the like extending spell abilities also take an action too, right? But this one's kind of cool because it's like, you have to be in line of sight.
Yeah, so you use your ally space to determine line of sight for the spell.
Oh, yeah. You could just shoot people around corners, being like, I see through your eyes.
It actually does mention that you can fool someone who can only see your ally into thinking your ally is the one who is able to cast the spell.
Oh my god, that's so good. I love it. No one will know that I am not the spellcaster. Just always run behind corners.
Yeah, you just have someone else up front, and I don't know what situation it would be, but it'd be very funny to have a situation where just someone's like pretending to be a spellcaster, and then you cast your spells through them.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Oh, this would be even cooler. Okay, if you just, I just kind of, all I think about is how charlatans can use these abilities. just make a quick buck, like.
Oh yes, I'm definitely a powerful spellcaster. Look at this spell I'm about to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That's so good.
So some other stuff that's here in Feats. There are a couple of reactive ones. If someone within 15 feet of you takes damage, then you can get a reactive heal. It's 2 points more expensive than regular heal from your pool of points, but it's a reactive heal, which can be, again, super useful. Similarly, you have a thing that if someone is about to do a saving throw within 20 feet of you, you can spend 4 points from your Vitality Network, and they get a bonus on that saving throw. So again, really good support.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, there's not a lot of like reactive heal stuff for allies that I can think of immediately, especially not just like a class feat.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it kind of has because the idea is that you guys are connected like all the time. It's kind of like sending that vital energy to them is like a lot easier. I think that I don't know. This class already feels like way more distinct than the cleric, because it's just the fact that I think of the idea that clerics holy powers, I guess, it's like you asking your god to heal them, right? Essentially, while in this scenario, it's like you are like the font of like the healing power, and you are already connected to these people. Like it's like you guys are already like the lifeline's already there. You're just turning the flow on and off, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little like that, especially because you can flavor the magic so many different ways with the addition of the Mystic's connection.
I was gonna say like you just bombard them with Virons, I guess, with the
True.
Instead of hurting, they heal.
True. Some other stuff they have. A lot of the stuff in Starfinder has some really fun names, so I highlighted some of those that had really fun names. Cloud storage is literally like if you have points left in your vitality network, then you have basically an extra dimensional space that you can store stuff in, and you or a bonded ally can remove something from it.
You or a bonded ally can remove something from it. That's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know if they need to be right next to you. It's just as an ally in your bond. I would assume there's a range for it though. But
yeah. I mean,
regardless.
They don't have one. Yeah, that's pretty cool actually, because you can store a lot of stuff in here, apparently. Up to legendary rank, it's like 75 bulk. That's like, I'm sure some sort of massive gun or something. Like just like a literal like rocket. Just like, here, take this tank. Here is this tank out of cloud storage. That's funny. I love that. That's so good.
Yeah, even like 12 bulk right away is pretty cool. My favorite feat is there, but I'll come back to that one because it's my favorite one. But I did want to mention the one below it called Void Warranty, which is mostly a silly pun. Void Warranty. If you cast a spell that does void damage, then you regain points in your vitality network, equal to twice that spell's rank.
Ooh.
Which is, I just thought it was a very silly name, but it's a very interesting spell. But my personal favorite class feat that I've seen so far for the Mystic is this level 4 feat that is essentially, it's called Memory Bank. Basically, you carry a mental trove of memories that helps cement the special bond you have with your companions, and you can increase your vitality network's capacity. So with the memories, it's essentially like having temporary hit points for your vitality network. You increase the maximum value of it. You get 2 hit points per level, and these are additionally refreshed whenever you recharge your vitality network, which is done with a refocus action. And you can draw hit points from this similar to drawing them normally. What I thought was really interesting, though, is that you could also store these points into a weapon or a shield. And the weapon or shield, it has to have the tech trait and it has to have like an upgrade slot. But if you put points into there, you can essentially draw hit points out whenever you use the weapon or raise the shield with the item. Essentially, like, you gain power from the memories and the time you spent with your friends. And then when you use something you store those memories in, you can gain hit points back or spend them to heal an ally.
That's hilarious. That's like literally beating the shit out of your enemies with the power of friendship. That's great. That's so good.
It's really good. I love power of friendship stuff, and this class is very strong in power of friendship stuff. If I wanted to make a magical girl in Starfinder, it would probably be this class.
Ah, interesting. That makes sense. The power of love.
Yeah, man. I really want to. I really want to, like, I think I'm gonna try making a character with this. I really want to play Starfinder. I keep wanting to play Starfinder. I wish 2nd edition was out now. Maybe I'll just hibernate until. I mean, the playtest is next year, so I just have to hibernate until next year.
Yeah, it's coming, Calvin. Don't worry, it's coming.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's really interesting there, but those are just some of the class feats that I thought were interesting. And then continuing through the document, we have the actual connections. And again, this is essentially how the Mystic gets their magic. As of now, at least in this document, there's only 2 available of the different types of connection that you can have. So one is healing, where you're in tune with life energy, and one is rhythm, where you're in tune with like the vibrations and music of the cosmos. And as said before, they give you different skills, they give you access to different spell lists, and their own individual spells that you get as spells that you know. One thing they also give you is a harmony, which is essentially a bonus to certain actions. So with the healing connection, whenever you cast a healing spell on a bonded ally and you restore them to their maximum hit points, your vitality network will regain the excess hit points that the spell would have restored, up to your character level if it goes that far over. But...
Whoa, that's so good. That means like topping off healing like already healed players. That's so good, because then you can just convert your spells into your healing network, which then you can use later if they're that's really good.
Yeah, exactly. Because like one of the things with playing a cleric or a druid or whatever, or at least how I've been playing druid, is that I'm limited by the number of heal spells that I have. But with something like this, if I've used a heal spell, then I still get something from it. I get a point that I can use later. At the very least, I'll get a point that I can use later. With the rhythm connection, whenever you use transfer vitality, and that's the action you use for healing someone with your vitality network, they also get a bonus of +1 to attacks and damage rolls until the end of your next turn.
Oh, nice. That's pretty cool. So one's more of like keeping your pool of power like going, and the other one is getting like benefiting your allies, like making them do more damage. I like that. More of a buff roll. Nice.
Yeah, exactly. Especially like in Pathfinder 2, like that +1 can be the difference between like a regular hit and a crit.
Yeah.
They do have their own specific special spells depending on the connection that you have. There's Vitalize, which is very close in function to Heal, the way that Heal works, including the ability to cast it in different number of actions to get a different level of effect. Song of the Spheres, which is a thing that sort of just buffs allies within a range of you. Wild Bond, which is a thing that you need to get a feat for, but then you can give yourself, like an animal feature that gives you different kind of movement, so you can like burrow or fly or climb or swim. As well as different like types of attacks, like you can get some jaws and claws with that as well. And those are focus spells, so you need to use refocus to get the point back for those if you spend it on them. Just typical refocus stuff that we've probably talked about before, including the updates they're making for that in the new Pathfinder remaster. And after that is just the spells. Now, usually when we do these things, I try to pre-read these stuff. I didn't finish reading through the spells though, so for the most part, I've just seen like the names of things. So Ramon, I don't know if you want to just go through these quickly and maybe pick out a couple that have interesting names, and then we can just look at the text of them, since we're 50 or so minutes into the episode already.
One of them is just called Delete, dog. So yeah, that's. I was like, I know that these are like I don't know, these spell lists. I'm not sure if the spell list is. It looks like it's gonna go the same way as Pathfinder, where there's like occult spells and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because they have a spell list, but I just like that the arcane and occult spell list just has a spell called Delete, because we're in the future. I love all the futuristic sounding names where it's just like Delete, Gravity Tether. What is called Doom Scroll? Doom Scroll? Like.
Yeah, I actually did want to look at Doom Scroll because I saw that and I was like, this is really cool. This one is actually it's very funny. It's very sad. But Doom Scroll is you broadcast grim news to nearby devices, screens, and other displays. Creatures who can see one or more displays must attempt a will save. And creatures can end up either being fascinated or even frightened by the Doom Scroll. In fact, if they make a critical failure on that save, they become doomed, which is an...
Dude, it's so funny.
They literally become doomed. That's the one that's... Oh gosh, what was doomed again? I think that lowers your maximum for recovery checks.
Yeah, which is really good. But I just like that it also, screens that are like heads up screens, right? Like, you know, comm units on armor. So like if you're fighting high tech people, there's like a chance that like this will be here, right? Like this could be affecting versus like, you know, you're fighting like an animal or something, right? This will obviously won't work, but it's like super flavorful. I love it. It's like so futuristic, campy, and like the idea that like spells would evolve to involve the technology that's presented. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you could just make like a spell that's like, oh yeah, I shoot fireball, right? Why would fireball ever go away, right? It's like a dude shooting fire at range, right? But like this doom scroll just feels like such a Starfinder only game, like spell, because this won't work in Pathfinder. No one has screens.
No. But I think because I'm pretty sure they mentioned the name of the spell, Doom Scroll, during Gen Con this year. And I was super curious what it did, because I was like, there's no way it's literally doom scrolling. And I think you made that joke that that's what it was.
Yeah,
and funnily enough, that's exactly what it is. You just broadcast news on their device. And the news is just, it's so bad that the creature is literally doomed.
Nice. Oh, really so yeah, delete allows you to just delete actual text off of physical and digital pages. That is hilarious, actually.
Yeah, so delete, I guess, could work in a fantasy setting. But yeah, you literally delete text or information.
Yeah. Oh, that's super cool. Actually, that's a weird way of doing it. I don't know. I don't know what's up with me. I'm like trying to think of like ways to trick people or charlatans.
I know exactly what kind of Starfinder character you want to play, and I'm very excited to see a class that fits it.
No paper trails. we're just bad guys in disguise. We're just fighting the bad guys. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, gravity tether. This one's like a damaging spell. Yeah. So gravity tether, 30-foot range, one creature. Defense AC. You manipulate the electromagnetic forces acting on a creature, make a ranged attack spell roll, and they take 48 electrical damage and are pulled 5 feet closer to you, or 10 feet on a critical hit. Ooh. Moving target into a barrier, creature, or obstacle causes the target to stop before entering the space. Yeah. Okay, and then as it heightens, you can target 2 creatures with gravity tether, and on hit, you can move the creatures closer to each other or closer to you and increase the damage. Nice, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Moving people around is always going to be pretty useful, especially if you want to get them out of melee range or something.
Or getting them out of cover because of range combat.
True. Yeah. I do like the next one.
Even better if you have an ally that's like in the right angle to pull them out of cover. So you could just be like, kaplow! Like
yoink. It doesn't say that it's involuntary movement. I would think it is, but it doesn't say specifically. So I'm pretty sure it might still trigger opportunity attacks.
Ooh, that's even cooler. Yeah, no, I mean 5 feet is actually a pretty small amount, but I think it'll be enough to get them in range of somebody or get them out of range of something, right? Just enough to make it worth it.
Well, again, consider that you might be able to, you have that feat where you can cast your spell out of someone else's eyes, basically.
Yeah. So
the 5 feet they're being pulled could be towards that ally, but it might be the right direction to get that enemy out of cover.
Exactly. It feels like it feels really cool. I like it.
Yeah. Motivating ringtone. That's another one with a very fun name. It requires that your target has a comm unit, though. But when you cast the spell, you play a specific personal theme song for the owner of that comm unit, and they get some hit points back. They get some bonuses to speed. They get a bonus against fear effects as long as the comm unit is continuing to play their personalized ringtone.
Oh, that's so sick! I love it.
Which is very fun.
Make that shit your personal spell. or spell your was it spell
Or your signature spell. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you play the theme song. Like you just you
Oh
play the
yeah.
theme song.
Oh, this
Yeah.
would be a really cool signature spell, actually.
Yeah, that's really sick.
Oh man. Gosh, I think Mystic is gonna be my class. Like Soldier was pretty cool, but Mystic is like hitting a lot of the right notes for me, to be honest.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I do like the fantasy genre, but I think I like the sci-fi genre a little bit more. I think, or at least Starfinder's interpretation of like the sci-fi genre, like the blending of the two tropes, where like you still get the coolness of like magic and like spells and stuff like that, and like people dudes with swords and shit, and it's like, but you also get like the fun context that's a little bit more like you could have all these like puns, but they're actually useful spells, but also kind of funny, but also is like a little bit closer to like our modern life, right? It's like, fireball is one thing, but like having a personal ringtone, like that's like a thing that people have, like, right? Like a motivating ringtone, that's like real.
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking, it also sort of shows the differences in like the names and thought processes behind certain things between like Pathfinder and Starfinder, because with Pathfinder you have all those anime names of like cutting without blade and pretty much everything that's under the kineticist class, and in Starfinder you have all these puns and all these funny and cute things.
I'm so excited to see the rest of the next classes. Like I was pretty interested in playing that what's that one called? It's like the Soul Blade one, where it was like you had the power of gravity or the power of the sun, and I was like, these are very
the
Solarian, yeah, where it was like basically like, I imagined it as being like you were just a Jedi, like that's what you were. You were just this is their Jedi, and like I want to see what they do with it, because like I feel like if like if this is how things are going with the spells and all the cool abilities, then yeah, I think it's really cool. And again, like I think I was really blown away from all of the cool stuff from the soldier, and like that. Well, obviously the soldier is kind of allegory to the fighter, where it's like a pretty simple class where it's like you are the dude with the big gun, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And you could suppress people, or like you're the frontline fighter. This one feels like, this is the support class, but it doesn't feel like uncool to play. Like sometimes when you play like healers or support classes, like sometimes it's like you feel like you're not doing enough, but this feels pretty cool, actually. This feels like kind of fun, and there's lots of flavor here.
Yeah, exactly. It's really it's really cool just to see like an interesting support class. I really want to get some use out of it. I really love the mechanical power friendship stuff. I think if I play Starfinder, this might be the class I make a character in. I obviously want to run it, but if I play, I think this might be it.
Nice.
Yeah. Did you want to cover any more of the spells and stuff here, or like I don't want to talk. I don't know if we need to cover every single thing. Again, we're gonna have the document links below for people to check it out. Because there's some spells we haven't covered yet. Yeah,
no, I think those are the pretty cool ones anyway. The rest are kind of alright, but yeah, I mean they're good. They're all good, but I think we could call it here if anything.
Yeah, there's definitely cool stuff there. There's some damaging stuff there. There's some weapon refilling stuff there. There's Wisp Ally, which I think is one brought over from first edition Starfinder, so if you're into that, definitely check out this document, because they do have some spells that are like updates of other spells as well.
Okay. There's actually one spell I kind of want to go, one cantrip, which I think is actually pretty freaking major.
Yep.
Reorient is a one action spell, and it's a touch spell, but you target one creature and they basically just like they lose the off guard condition, which is like super cool. Like because like you get off guard is flanked, the old flanked, right? So it's like it's really easy to get in the flanked position, but the idea that for one action you could just remove that's like pretty good. That's like
Ooh, yeah, especially if you have
Yeah.
an enemy that can like, because that's your that's your flank, that's your flat-footed. If someone can take advantage of that and they do bonus damage like a sneak attack or whatever, you can just make someone immune to that for a bit, for like a round or so.
Yeah, and the fact that it's specifically one action. Actually, there's like a couple of one action. There's two one action cantrips, which I think they should always. The capture should just be one action. Period. Like
True.
I hope they do more of these because then you could do more spells in one go, right? Like you could just be a spellcaster and be like pa pa pa, you know, like.
Yeah, I keep having I don't know if I've talked about this, but when I'm playing the certain cleric NPC in one game, I keep getting stuck with like, what do I do with this last action?
Yeah.
It would be nice to have more one action spells.
Yeah, just so you can like just do something, right? Like assist in some other way with this action, because sometimes you're just in the perfect position, and you got nothing to do, right?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely check this out. You know what? I mean, you could just like use some of these spells. I don't see why not. You can just bring them into a Pathfinder game if you want to. No one can stop you.
Yeah, like no one. There's no police to tell you what to do in the game. Super secret second tip of the podcast. If you made all it to the end, yeah. There's no game lawyers out there. There's no actual ramifications of letting your players use any of this, or or if your GM says like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like no one's gonna come and police your game, as long as you're having fun. That's what matters, right? Like.
Yeah, man.
Oh man, that's like one of the sorest parts for when I think about the internet. It's like people just get mad that you're not playing the game the same way as them, and then it's like, whatever, dude. Like,
True. Yeah. If you can figure out a way to use Doom Scroll in a fantasy setting, let me know.
Dead man falls out of the sky and gives you a letter. Someone wants something, gives you a letter.
Yeah, that's just Skyrim. All right. So again, this will be linked below. Definitely go check out this class. We might do some sort of play test or something at some point in the future. And if we do, we'll definitely talk about it. Anything else, or should we roll on into this outro?
We could go into the outro.
Alright, well, thanks for stopping by and checking out this document with us. If you want to see more Starfinder 2e stuff, or more Pathfinder, or Lancer, or any of the other games we've talked about on here, definitely go check out the podcast playlist. It's gonna be, it's got everything that we've talked about before, all previous 150-something odd episodes. Speaking of which, actually, the channel recently passed 500 subscribers. Which is a pretty significant milestone, and I'm very excited about all the stuff that YouTube will let us do now.
Yeah. And happy Thanksgiving, I guess, Canadians.
True, we are recording this on Canadian Thanksgiving, so it's going to be out of date by the time you hear it, but happy Thanksgiving to all our Canadian listeners out there.
Yeah, I hope you guys had a good one.
True. I did some turkey, had some macaroni pie. It was pretty good.
Nice.
So yeah. Other than that, if you scroll down, you'll see links to all sorts of Lancer third-party writers and creators who have all sorts of awesome stuff going on. I did want to shout out MechFinder, but I looked at their Kickstarter, and I'm not going to have enough time to. However, the Kickstarter for Lancer Tactics, they recently sent out some of the bonuses you got at certain levels. Yeah, I got that metal coin, that Drink Deep and Descend metal coin, and it's pretty cool, and I don't know what I'm going to use it for, but I'm sure I'll find a use for it. So nice. I just wanted to mention that for other people who might have been on that Kickstarter. And check out MechFinder anyway. I'm sure the Kickstarter will be over by the time this episode is out, but just check it out anyways. Also, the Untold Stories project, where I'm at occasionally, they're going into their one-shot season until the end of the year, basically. So if you want to see a whole bunch of different games, go check them out. They're also starting a new series on Tuesdays, Something in the Dark, which sort of involves the magical side of that universe, but the side that you don't normally see, the grimdark magical stuff. while the superheroes are dealing with like the big bombastic things. They're the ones that, keep the world from ending and don't get the credit for it. It's pretty cool, and I'm very excited to see more of those characters.
Nice.
What else should we talk about? Oh, gaming streams. That's something we do on the channel. As far as gaming streams go, the current schedule is Thursdays, we've got more Alan Wake stuff, Fridays, Baldur's Gate, and Sundays, Mass Effect Andromeda. So if you're interested in any of those, come check them out. But I think that's it for the episode, unless I remember something else and edit it in. Ramon, anything else we need to remind people of before we head off?
No, I think we're good to go.
All right. Well, for all our GMs and players out there who need a motivating ringtone, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.